Hello everybody, welcome to this video in which I am going to lament to you about the state of reading while the birds outside are singing. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm not here to talk about the singing birds outside, or actually maybe I am here to talk about the singing birds. I'm here to talk about the pleasures of life. I'm making this sound so much more dramatic than it actually is. So, at the beginning of this year, I undertook a mammoth task, a gargantuan task. I was going to read a book that is approximately 1,600 pages long. I told myself it was doable because I had seen other people do it. I told myself that there was a way to do this. There was a way that I could read this book in this year and not have it feel daunting. And that would be to read one chapter of this book every day. And a chapter is about 5 pages long. Really not very much. So I undertook this task. I started reading it. And I was doing really well for a couple of weeks. And then I sort of fell off the bandwagon. And I kept telling myself that I was going to get back on. And I kept telling myself that it's okay, you're not that far behind where you're supposed to be reading this book by now in this year. And it's okay, you can still catch up. Even if you just spend like a week reading 2 chapters a day instead of 1. Or if you spend one day and read like 100 pages in one day and then go back to reading a chapter a day or something like that. And then I just kept not doing anything about it. And so I fell further and further behind in the book where I was supposed to be, according to how far into the year it has gotten to be. And now it is halfway through the year. And I have not read anything since January. This book specifically is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. As you can tell, it is massive. You can't see my whole face behind this book. It is incredibly large. And I read up to page 125. And I'm gonna tell you that up to page 125, not very much has happened in this book. But I've also realized that I don't care to know what happens in this book. I don't have any interest to know what happens in this book, to know what the story is about. I have no idea what the story is about because I've never even read the synopsis of the story. I don't care. I never have cared. So I don't really understand why I talked myself into trying to read this book this year, because I have no interest in this book. I have no interest in what the story is telling me so far. I have no interest in the characters. I do not know where the story is going. And I don't care to know where the story is going. And so, with you, all as my witnesses, officially here, I am DNFing this book. I am taking my bookmark out. I am not going to finish reading this book. I'm going to get rid of this book. This was a semi-expensive mistake to learn my lesson from. I actually don't remember how much this book cost me. I don't think it was actually that expensive for how large it is. But I genuinely could not care less about reading this book ever in my life right now. There may be a time when I'm like 80 and I think now is the time to read War and Peace. But by that time, I can just buy myself a new copy. I don't want to have to lug this copy of this book around with me on my bookshelf and to wherever I go when I move, for the eventuality that I might want to read this book at some point in the future, when in reality I'm probably never going to read this book. I'm probably never going to want to read this book. I'm probably never going to want to read any of the other super long, large classics like Crime and Punishment, or Anna Karenina, or Moby Dick, or what is that other one? Don Quixote. Any of those. I'm probably never going to want to read those books because they're so long, and I don't really care about the stories that are in them. So I'm gonna get rid of this book and set myself free. And it's kind of taken me down a little existential rabbit hole that I've been down many a time, and I've never learned my lesson, and hopefully this time I will actually have learned my lesson. But this is also just, I could have just stopped reading this book, told nobody about it, and gotten rid of it, because I never even told any of you watching these videos that I even started reading this book at the beginning of the year, because I thought, how neat would it be if I posted a video at the end of the year saying, I read this book in secret, or it took me a whole year to read this book in secret, or something along those lines. And then I could tell you all about my success in reading War and Peace, a really long book, and telling you how you could do it too if you wanted to. And I just don't want to be that person. Because you could do it if you wanted to. Granted that you are actually interested in the story, or have ever in your life had any interest in reading this specific book. If you have never had any interest in reading this book, don't read it. This is my existential crisis that I keep coming back to, is why do we keep reading books that we have not got any interest in reading, because we think we should read them, or because we think people will think that we're not real readers, or educated readers, or intellectual people if we haven't read these certain books. And this is specifically a thing with classics. There are certain classics that people just assume you will have read if you are a reader, or that they think that you should read if you are a reader. A lot of these books are actually really good. That's why they're classics. And that's why they've stuck around for so long, and they have relevant themes, and they are, I don't know, beloved by the masses. That's why they have been in print and stuck around for such a long time, even after their authors have died, even after the first run of their publishing was finished, or first print run was finished, and all the copies were sold. There are reasons why these books stick around. But I'm here to tell you that you do not have to read the books that you're not interested in. It doesn't matter how many 100 books before you need to read before you die lists these books are on. If you're not interested in reading them, don't read them. And this is for me, to me, from me as well. And it's to you from me. Don't read the books that you're not interested in. And don't let people make you... What? Don't let... What? How? What? My brain is having a malfunction right now. Don't let people make you feel bad about that? Is that how the sentence... Is that how that sentence is supposed to go? And don't let people make you feel bad about not having read specific books just because they think that those books are important. Those are the books that are important to them. The books that are important to you are the books that you like reading. So if you're someone who only likes to read fantasy books, then read fantasy books and love your fantasy books. There are great fantasy books out there. I wouldn't really know that much about fantasy because I don't read a lot of fantasy, but I have read some fantasy and it has been fabulous. If you only like reading crime novels or romance, or if you only like reading classics and you want to read all of the 100 books you should read, classics you should read before you die books, then do that. And if you like contemporary fiction, or I don't know, literary fiction or translated fiction, if you only want to read books that were translated from Japanese into English, then read those books. If you only want to read South American literature, read that. If you only want to read African literature, then read that. But Just read the books that are interesting to you and that you like and that you want to actually read, and don't let yourself be manipulated into reading books that you think you should read for the sake of being an intellectual reader or a well-rounded reader. Do you know who should be well-rounded readers? People who write book reviews in publications like the New York Times or the Sunday Times, or I don't know, whichever other publications publish book reviews. Those people who make a living, and I mean, I guess YouTubers will also fall into this category, and anybody who makes book content online, but people specifically, or the people who judge book prizes, like the Booker Prize, or the Pulitzer Prize, or the Women's Prize for Fiction, or anything like that. Those people are the people who are obligated to read from a wide variety of books, because they have an obligation to be able to be objective about all of those books. So they have to have read from all of them to know what works in each genre. But other people, normal humans, the mere mortals that we are, we don't have to read anything that we don't want to. So if you want to read self-help books or non-fiction or memoirs, or if you want to read short story collections or children's fiction or young adult or middle grade romance, fantasy, sci-fi, crime, murder mysteries, classics, translated fiction, anything, just read what you love. That is all I want you to take away from this video. And what I'm taking away from this video is the the weightlessness that I now feel from having lifted the weight of this book off of my proverbial reading shoulders, because I can get rid of this book now. I don't know if anybody else would want this book. I'm gonna see if anybody wants to buy this book secondhand. But at least I don't have to read it anymore. Somebody who actually wants to read this book can now buy it secondhand for a cheaper price and read it. But it's not going to be me.